Next on News Talk AM 1480, WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
Well, it's Friday. Dr. Robert Heineman is here. Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Doran. Dr. Heineman, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure as always, Brian. Let's see what you have to talk about today.
The debate, what else?
Oh, well, we can talk about some other things, too. We don't want to let the debate suck all the air out of the news, Brian.
Newsmax and Drudge online polls showed overwhelmingly with their readers online that Trump was the winner. Pollster John Zogby, though, says it's all downhill for Trump after this. What do you think?
I think Zogby's on the money there. I have talked to a variety of people in the Alfred Valley, and it's amazing how many people listen to it. And, frankly, they enjoyed the debate for the most part. In fact, they all did. And there was even one maverick Democrat from Hornell that called me down
who did
morning.
They think won, I should say?
Well, I think most of them thought Trump looked pretty bad. And I think that's one interesting aspect of the Drudge Report. I think that reflects the kind of people who are reading Drudge pretty much every day. I mean, you got to get this information on the two-headed dogs in Wyoming and such. The Drudge gets in there. No, I think a lot of people thought Fiorina did very well. And a number of people thought that Christie handled himself exceptionally well. And people thought that Bush did quite a bit better than he had done in the first debate. And so I kind of agree with that. I may have run into one person, I think, that may have thought Trump was
So what you're saying is that the people you talk to in Alfred are not Trumpsters?
Well, but a number of them are Democrats.
Okay.
Again, I don't know, maybe they wouldn't like, well, I suppose they wouldn't like Trump anyway, but, there were a number of others, people I think that are kind of basic, the common person's interpretation of what's going on, which is what I like to do, is talk to people and just let them kind of tell me what they thought was going on. I still like Kasich, but he did not show all that great. I mean, I thought he was certainly passable, and Rubio very articulate. So I would say, from my perspective, Fiorina, Christie, and Bush, I think, handled themselves pretty well. Then going down to the second tier, I think Rubio and Kasich. The Huckabee and Cruz, articulate, no question about it, but as one person, pretty good Republican put it, they're basically one-issue candidates. And in that sense, I'm not certain. They were clearly cultivating that Christian evangelical base, and which is out there. But again, I think that is a little narrow for somebody who's going to run in a general election. So generally, I like the fact that Bush put Trump on his heels a couple times, and I thought Fiorina really drilled him on his comments about the way she looked. And then he made a really stupid comeback about, well, yeah, you're really quite a beautiful woman, etc. I think every woman in the audience was just turned off by that. The other thing I didn't like, I was disappointed in, was Carson. I thought he was way too
passive,
and I thought he was sucking up to Trump way beyond what he should be. I'm not certain, but what they may have some kind of understanding there. I'm disappointed in that, and I was especially disappointed when they went into the autism and vaccination linkage.
With what Trump said about one of his employees' kids getting sick from the
Well,
vaccine.
that may be, and who knows whether they got sick from the vaccine. You don't know. I mean, but they take these single tragedies of one sort or another. But then Carson doesn't say, look, there's no, here's a doctor who is really one of the top.
And you didn't think that
Carson, he should have come back and said,
Carson should have jumped in on that one?
He should have said, hey, hold it just a minute. This is voodoo science here, vaccinations. I mean, I was disappointed in him. frankly.
So overall, you say Fiorina, Christie, and Jeb Bush were the winners of the debate.
Yeah, I guess I'd say that. Right.
Okay.
And I think toward the end of the debate, Trump sort of disappeared. What was kind of interesting, I thought, was at the start they kept focusing on his facial grimaces, and that disappeared halfway through, and I'm thinking they were probably getting feedback from Twitter and some of these other sources saying, hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And so they didn't focus on him at all there. What was the Iranian agreement, clearly most of them were opposed to that. Kasich, on the other hand, stood up and said, look, we've got to work with these people. We've got to work this out. And I'm not certain, but he might have been the only one on the who was willing to take a more benign view of the agreement. So all in all, I think, frankly, it did the Republicans some good. Again, the listening audience, you have any late figures on that, Brian? I
didn't catch that.
What I've seen, and I'm not up to date on that, was that it was the largest audience that CNN has had. That
I can believe. Whether it was bigger than Fox or not,
I
don't know.
That's the question. But they were pretty close, I would guess.
Okay.
So you have a heck of a lot of people tuning in to listen to the Republicans go back and forth. And I think they're doing it because they're interested in what they have to say. And I think this hurts the Democrats a lot.
On the topic of Democrats, National Review is reporting that they heard from a source who was sitting on a train.
How far back does this go, Brian?
This is Thursday's news.
Well, I understand that, but we got, never mind. Go ahead. Where's this rumor come from?
The National Review is reporting a rumor.
Yes.
Someone they know was sitting on a train next to one of Joe Biden's top campaign people.
Oh, okay.
And the Joe Biden's top campaign person said in front of this person on a train that Joe Biden is 100% in for the presidential race. What do you think of that?
I think he'll be in, yeah.
And what will happen to Hillary Clinton?
I haven't been sitting next to anybody on the subway or on the Amtrak lately, but I think he's going to get in there. I think, like the debate last night, though they wailed on Clinton a little bit and hit her on some points, they really didn't spend as much time on Clinton as maybe a lot of people thought they would, and frankly, I think that's good. I think they're basically pushing issues and other controversies that are really kind of irrelevant to Clinton. But the polls are showing increasingly that she's plummeting in places like New Hampshire and Iowa, and she's trying very hard to pull something out in South Carolina, which is the primary after New Hampshire, which she lost back in 2008 to Obama, and I'm thinking that Biden might do pretty well in South Carolina. So I'm thinking things are not looking good at all. And the other point we could make here with Biden is obviously on the inside. He knows how seriously the FBI is going after Clinton and her emails and the people who've been helping her. So there might be a lot more there than we're looking at now. And I'm not quite certain how the Clintons can wiggle out of that. And you have to understand that it's not just the emails, it's all these relationships with this foundation that her husband was pushing while she was Secretary of State. I mean, there's all kinds of financial dealings there that really, at the very least, are serious conflicts of interest.
And Joe Biden doesn't have all this baggage.
No, and he knows what they are. So the combination is... it could be disaster. I mean, he could really level her, I think, if he wanted to. And it'd be kind of interesting what they would say about Joe. I mean, it's pretty hard to dislike Joe Biden, I must say.
John Boehner, the House Speaker for the Republicans in Congress.
Right.
New York Times headline from Thursday. Fellow anti-abortionists may be John Boehner's downfall. Quote, conservatives on the right flank are questioning Mr. Boehner's resolve to stand up to President Obama over federal funding for Planned Parenthood, and their foment is so great that they are mulling a challenge to the Speaker's control of the House, unquote. Question, Dr. Heineman.
Yes, Brian.
Question number one, will that succeed, and would you see somebody like a Trey Gowdy in there? Question number two, what will Tom Reed do?
Tom Reed will support Boehner.
And will this coup or ousting of the House Speaker John Boehner, will that happen?
Well, I don't know. I think you have a couple of items in there. One, my impression from some inside sources indicates to me that, again, I haven't been sitting on any rail cars or buses with important people on them, but nonetheless, I have talked to a few people. And there are about 40 wingnut Republicans running loose there in the House that are troublesome in a number of ways. So they're definitely going to push this Planned Parenthood thing. But I think without any question, a huge number of the Republicans in the House and probably a lot of Democrats are not going to support funding for Planned Parenthood. These videos that are out there are so gross and horrendous that Democrats talk about cutting your throat. Any Democrat that would vote for funding for Planned Parenthood now, I think, would accept maybe some of the... And that includes your inner city black areas because studies show that it's the black community that is really being hit by abortion the heaviest. So I think there's a real wave there in terms of that point. But the one thing the Republicans with some sense want to avoid is a government shutdown. And the wingnuts don't hesitate to argue that they'll shut the government down if they have to, if they don't get something on this Planned Parenthood issue. Now, in my discussions with some of the people, I think there is a way out of this, some kind of compromise where the liberal Democrats and the moderate Republicans can put together a kind of compromise, which does end up defunding Planned Parenthood, but which continues funding the government. It would not be good because the Republicans are on a real roll right now, primarily due to Obama and Hillary. It would be really stupid to do something like that, and I think most Republicans understand that. So now that gets back to Boehner. Of course, again, some of these are really conservative Republicans. They want Boehner out. But again, my feedback from Mr. McCarthy, who is the majority leader, I guess, in the House. Yeah, Boehner's the Speaker. McCarthy's the majority leader from California. And he's really quite embarrassed by this. He feels he's in a very awkward spot. He's not interested in tossing Boehner aside, yet these guys are wandering around kind of pushing him. So I think this is probably going to come to nothing, but what is more worrisome is the ability of these guys to clog up the government process here, and we don't want a government shutdown. I think we're on a roll right now, and I think we should keep going.
One more question for you on the national scene.
Surely.
The Federal Reserve.
Yes.
Headline.
Oh?
Federal Reserve leaves key interest rate unchanged, citing low inflation as the reason. Your thoughts there, Dr.
Oh, I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. The economy is pumping along at a very nice rate, and to raise interest rates at this point, I think would only slow that down. I think the only reason you would want to raise interest rates would be to make the bankers happy, and I'm not particularly interested in doing that. The fact that interest rates are at a very low level, people can buy houses, can buy cars. The price of gasoline is dropping very close to $2, in some places under $2 a gallon, which has to stimulate people's activity of all kinds and stimulate purchases in other areas. So, no, that's absolutely the thing to do. And down the line, if we see something that looks inflationary, which I assume eventually you'll begin to get some heavy inflationary pressures, that's when raising interest rates begins to make some sense. But we're making countries like the Chinese and some of these others look a little puny right now, and I think we have to give Obama and his ineptness some credit for that. The other thing I think I would like to touch on is this huge influx of refugees into Europe, which came up at the debate to a certain extent. And I think, unfortunately, the people on the panel did not really touch on the key point on this, and that is the Obama and Hillary Clinton destruction of the nation state in the Middle East. And without stable nation states, these poor people are just thrown to the wolves. And we go back to the so-called Arab Spring, when people like Hillary and Obama were touting Arab democracy and the overthrow of these authoritarian leaders in countries which had never, ever been democratic in their history. And then somehow democracy is going to blossom. It's been disaster. And so in countries like Libya, Yemen, Syria, Somalia, Iraq. Now, Iraq, fortunately, is halfway stable, not totally by any means, but they've just torn these countries, allowed these countries to be torn apart by this simple-minded, superficial touting of American values, which, frankly, have no place in that area. And these poor people are suffering as a result. And I think the Republicans should lay that at their door.
We're going to take a quick break. Be back in just a moment with Alfred University professor of political science, Dr. Robert Heineman. Back with Dr. Robert Heineman on the Newsmaker Show. Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Doran. A couple state issues.
Oh, okay.
Governor Andrew Cuomo wants and is pushing hard to get minimum wage up to $15 an hour.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's much ado about nothing. The $15 an hour doesn't go into effect till what, 2021, something like that, 5 years, 6 years down the pike. Now, maybe it goes into effect, I think maybe it goes into effect a little sooner in New York City. But again, living in New York City, to put it mildly, is quite a bit more expensive than in Allegheny County or Steuben County. So moving it toward $15 over a 6-year period, frankly, I can't get too concerned about that. And frankly, I think it might be a good thing for business, even smaller business, because it may well shut off this sort of liberal activism to increase the minimum wage. The Republicans can say, look, you've got an increase here to $15. Now let's move on to something else. And although it would go up on a kind of ladder basis, I think most businesses can handle that. So I can't get too worked up about that. And I think the Republicans can make criticisms and things of that sort, but if they're smart, they'll just go along with it.
Another state question. This is from a story we got from the Albany Times-Union. On Tuesday of this week, the state's motion to dismiss a lawsuit against what's called the gag order on teachers so that teachers cannot talk to students about Common Core questions on tests. The state's motion to dismiss the teachers' lawsuit against the state, there was 5 teachers from the Rochester area who were suing the state over Common Core, that lawsuit can now go forward.
So again, I don't understand. You're saying that under the state regulations, the teachers cannot discuss...
I guess they're not supposed to talk about certain upcoming test questions on Common Core
I see.
tests.
Yeah.
And 5 teachers from the Monroe County area are suing the
Well,
state
I don't know
to
if I
change
can
that.
do you much good on that. I can see what the state's trying to do. They don't want teachers teaching to the test. And that's, of course, what happens. For example, the Regents exams, you find the better the students do on the exam, the better the teachers are evaluated. And you can see that happen with Common Core as well. So I can see what the state's trying to do. And I think those teachers probably are going to lose on that. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Robert Heineman, any other topics that I did not bring up that you'd like to cover?
Well, I think it's important that we understand that Congress is back in session now, and they have some pretty hefty issues to deal with. And so let's not let Donald Trump and Carly Fiorina dominate the picture here. I think maybe one result of following Zogby is that Trump is going to move farther and farther into the background. Oh, I might say this. Before the debate, the day before the debate, as you know, there was Trump on a battleship with 16-inch guns behind him pushing I don't know what. But frankly, from my perspective, that's what is really scary about Trump. I don't want him standing in front of a bunch of guns telling me he should be president. And I'm thinking, again, in the debate, he said, I'll talk to Putin. I'll go talk to Putin. And I'm thinking, Putin's been talking to Obama, and then he'd be talking to Trump, and Putin is going to say, where do they get these guys? Where do these guys come from? That's my thought.
Dr. Robert Heineman, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.